Is now called to order. Clerk, call the roll.
Mr. Dallahan? Mrs. Gallagher?
Here.
Mr. Kraftcheck?
Here.
Mr. Moore?
Here.
Mr. Parzak?
Here.
Mrs. Rich?
Here.
The meeting is now open. Adequate notice of the meeting was provided by posting a copy of the time and place on the municipal clerk's bulletin board and mailing a copy of same to the press and the Cape May County Herald on January 4th, 2019. Will everyone please rise to salute the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'll start the work session with public safety and with the presentation, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I'd like to introduce Bill McLeese from Bill McLeese Architecture. When our office was charged with developing plans and concepts for the new lifeguard building, we recommended Bill. We had our initial kickoff meeting back in July where we were charged with the program. We had met with Sandy, Grant, and some other borough officials. Based on that initial meeting, Bill went to the drawing board literally and came back about 2 weeks ago for a follow-up meeting with some concept plans. Based on that second meeting, there were minor revisions that Bill has made, and he was asked to come here to present the program. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Bill McLeese from Bill McLeese Architecture. How's everybody doing this afternoon?
Good.
Good.
Good,
You?
good.
So thanks, Mark. Again, the company name is William McLeese Architecture. We're located in Summers Point, if you have not heard of us. Been in business for, just a little bit about us, been in business since 2005. We have 5 people on staff, do quite a bit of public work in the area, as well as private work kind of all throughout the Northeast. Work we've been involved includes commercial office, public work, hospitality, restaurant work, multifamily, healthcare, and of course, single family as well. We've been fortunate enough over the past 5 or 7 years, I'll say, to work for the municipal clients we see up for you, as well as some county work as well. And I had the opportunity to work with Ventnor on their beach patrol, and are currently working with Wildwood Crest on the exterior roofs of their beach patrol building. So we're here today to talk about your beach patrol headquarters. A little bit of context, this was the building we were kind of pointed towards when we initially started discussions about the property, life-saving station that you have here in town. So we tried to pull some visual cues off of that and meld them with what we found the programmatic requirements for the building to be after kind of working back and forth with Sandy. The existing facility, I'm sure you're familiar with, is between 95th and 96th Street at the beach. Had a good life, in need of some help. If you may be aware, maybe you're not, we did a building assessment for the property late last year. In that assessment, just pulled up a paragraph, which is from the summary. What we found were some signs of building failure due to water infiltration and settlement. Usability of the facility is a little limited due to lack of accessibility. It's tight space, tight restrooms, tight quarters for
video that you presented, you come in, it showed coming in there, that will be an exit only, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
It would be exit only from that last drive that you see on the right.
Right,
So-
flow will come through and then come towards us.
Correct. But 95th Street, I think, has to remain two-way in order to,
Mhm.
for parking access.
How, you said, Bill, that the footprint of the new building is the same as the old, or essentially the same?
It's
Let's,
essentially the same as what I would say. The building today that's there is a Cape Cod that is somewhat smaller, but there's a collage of sheds around it.
right,
So if we were to take the footprint of all of the sheds, the beach patrol building itself, beach tag's office, and I think we squared off the westerly corner, which is not currently developed, that is basically the footprint.
so it's the building and the outbuildings, basically, is what you're saying?
Correct.
And,
The restroom building, I believe, is larger than the restroom buildings that you have there today. But what we're proposing is also further away from the waterfront, which is something that CAFR likes to promote. And I think improves the view corridor by moving it off to one side from the right of way, which is another thing that CAFR likes to. kind of
Well, that
restrict
has-
public access to the beach.
that also has more capacity than what's there now.
That's correct.
Right, so now, the footprint of the main building, are there additional decks and things at the ground level that make it bigger yet, that we're not counting in the footprint, or?
We have no deck area
On
at the
the-
ground floor.
okay.
So it is, it's not in the building footprint.
And the height, I couldn't read the numbers, so
Right
compared to
now,
the building,
Right now, we're working, and I'm gonna say this with the exception that we're not considering, the crow's nest, but to the ridge of the main roof,
Huh?
we're trying to work to the existing zoning requirements for the area. So basically 35 feet from, FEMA, from
Yep.
the FEMA base.
what's the height of the existing one that's
The
there now?
existing building's
Yeah.
probably 24
Yeah.
feet.
So you're going 10
We're
feet
about-
higher,
Yeah, we're about 12 feet higher.
12 feet higher, excluding the tower.
Correct. That's correct.
And did your estimate, I don't want to monopolize the conversation,
We'll keep going.
did your estimate, does that include weatherization in the building as far as climate control or heat, or, because I don't,
Yes.
that's in
Right
there,
now, those
okay.
numbers are factored into it. So if you choose not to do that and you're going to winterize the building, you should certainly expect to see some savings because as mechanical, electrical, and plumbing work that will not need to be done.
Well, I'm assuming you would recommend that we have some kind of climate control, and you don't want that building standing empty all winter with no heat in it, or because things just deteriorate, is that?
Yes.
Yes.
Which is part of what we have with the existing building. I would add that if you're going through the effort of reconstructing this building, it's incumbent upon you to follow all the building codes in any way, not to the extent that they're going to require you to heat and cool. We can probably make that justification, but if you're doing the stairs the way we need to do the stairs to comply with required life safety codes, if you're doing the elevator, which you need to do by requirements, Department of Community Affairs, you might as well take full advantage of the improvements you're making
Yeah.
in condition the building's going to be used 365, whether it's for the beach patrol or if it's used for other compatible uses in the off-season.
If you were to break down the cost estimates, what's the cost of the beach patrol building and what's the cost of the restroom?
Again, this is all square
Right.
footage costs. Well, let's go back to it. So you can see, probably two-thirds of the way down, restroom building, we currently have 460,000 at 1,000 square feet. The beach patrol building is 5,700 square feet, so it's about 2.5 million. The square footage cost for the beach patrol building is slightly less than the restroom building. In fact, I probably would tell you, you might even see more of a skew between the two because plumbing, electric, and the restroom building is going to drive the square footage cost up, so you might find that to be a little bit higher.
What is the ground elevation for flooding?
Ironically, in this zone on the beachfront, it's not in a flood zone, so it's zone X right now.
Thank you.
You put up the photograph again of the whole. I'm sorry? The picture of the whole complex. Yeah.
So trying to tie it into a Nantucket style, so it would be compatible with the existing residential in the area and historic use.
You did a great job.
If you'd like, I can lead you through it. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Nice job.
Very Stone Harbor,
I'm sorry?
very Stone Harbor.
Very Stone Harbor included.
Make sure you grab that memory stick before you split it. I'll leave it up there.
Hey, Joe? Yeah. Joe? Joe? Turning that off.
You worked there.
It's a building, it's a building.
It's beautiful. What you would expect from Stone Harbor.
Yeah.
I can,
Thank you. Thank you.
Roger, what?
Oh my God, look at that.
No, it's not conducive.
Do you want to stay with Beach Patrol and?
Sure.
Then we can hear from Sandy and see what his input is on the proposed building?
I'll start with the report. The last month has been, I'm sure you all have seen, very crowded, as crowded as I can ever remember. We had 9 rescues, 15 EMS calls, 4 police calls, and 9 lost children were found. We've begun to lose guards as they're returning to high school and college. We're emphasizing to them that they need to work as long as they can before they leave. They don't need, too much time off to prepare unless you're traveling a great distance for school. A lot of the guards, they're working their days off and just trying to stay to the last minute to help alleviate the problem. We'll have guards on duty through Labor Day weekend, and we hope to have a few beaches protected into September, as long as we can, depending on how many people are available. And that's my report.
Any questions?
You okay with the new building?
It's a beautiful
Proposal?
building.
It's got, well, we know that. Has it got everything in there that you need?
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, we'd have to really look at it and just details, that the main thing is we need a lot of storage downstairs. The downstairs is water and sand and equipment. That's really all you end up having in the downstairs. It's for light boats, wave runners, vehicles, things like that. And the restrooms, the upstairs would be more civilized for the office work and, anything like that. It looks beautiful. I think it would be an improvement to the view, just the overall look of the area there. And I think the restrooms are needed. There are usually lines there now, and that needs to be improved too.
That was gonna be my question, is do you think going to that number of stalls or facilities is?
I think so. I mean,
I thought that too, I just wanted to,
and there are a lot of issues with the flow of the parking is a big problem, because right now, it could be the police or the EMS, Public Works, or us, and we all have to go around the headquarters down onto the beach. And there's a constant flow of people off of the beach, they come down the pavilion and you cross in front of that, and there are cars always parked there loading and unloading, or people, there really isn't anywhere to park to actually stop and buy beach tags at the office. They really don't have anywhere to go, so they just stop, you know, and when we're in the peak of the season, it's constant. There are constantly cars in the way, and it's just, you know, there's just a lot of volume. So I think that really does need to be addressed.
There is also a shower and foot washing station and water fountain all there in the corner. Is that proposed to remain?
It can.
Because there is one, you know where I mean, right in that one corner, there's like a little decking area that is back. And that usually has a line starting near that as well.
Right.
People line up there. There's a lot going on there.
There is a lot of activity, and if that could be moved somewhere that the line isn't where people are coming off of the beach or near the beach tagger window or where any vehicles are, you know, that would be something to consider, because sometimes there are 40 or 50 people standing there.
Wow.
Okay.
I'm not very good with visual drawings like the ones we just looked at, but there was something that I saw that I thought may present an issue, and that was the middle section with the viewing area. And it had a beautiful enclosure, and I thought, I wonder if that would defeat the purpose of your being able to be out there and observe the whole beach. So I know you can't tell that right now because it's still in a drawing, but when that time comes that you get a look at it, I think it would be wise to just check that out.
I thought the same thing. I think the
Did you?
decks could all be connected
Yeah.
through some sort of openings, and then you would be able to flow and see everything. We spend a lot of time out on the deck trying to see, you know, as much of the area of the beach as we can. We spend hours and hours a day out there, so I agree.
Well, you certainly don't need anything that will impede your vision.
Right.
So it was
Yeah.
just a thought, you'll just keep it in
Okay.
mind.
If you look at the plan, it probably would be very easy to do.
Right.
If you look at what's there between the front deck and the next deck. Probably a good idea.
Anything else?
I have a question. Sandy, the last councilman, George Kaiser, came up and talked about an incident with his daughter, I believe, who had a reaction to something. And you were going to talk to him and to follow up with the guards who were on the 95th Street beach. And I'm just curious what happened.
I have not spoken with Mr. Kaiser, but I did address it with the guards, and I just reiterated our policy that if there's anything that even remotely seems like it'd be turning into some kind of a serious issue, to call us. But I did go over it with the.
Did you get any feedback from the guards on that?
No one knows exactly what situation it was.
Okay.
I really, so I just addressed it, that whenever we have anything that we're not sure about, we call for EMS. But I just went over it again with everyone.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you,
Thank you.
Sandy.
Thank you.
Municipal Court?
Afternoon. We've had a lot of crazy stuff going on, unusual complaints. So court is staying busy. We're already scheduling for when college night will be in January. So keeping busy. Anybody have any questions for us?
How's your numbers compared to last year?
We're about the same.
Okay,
If anything, we're going, criminals going up, parking's down,
okay.
because we're nicer and kinder.
Kinder and gentler police force? Okay,
So,
good.
okay. Anything else?
Thanks, Deb.
Thank you, Deb.
Fire Department.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Roger.
Made a big deal last month about saying that June was our busiest month ever.
And now,
Well, July was our busiest month ever.
ever.
Ever. We had 60 calls during the month for a total of 197 for the year, and that's about 30 ahead of this time last year. EMS calls were 104 calls. Last year we had 89 calls for the month. So we're right off the charts with EMS. The calls included 1 building fire, 3 cooking fires, 1 vehicle fire, 1 dumpster fire, 13 EMS assists, 6 beach EMS calls, 2 motor vehicle accidents, 2 elevator rescues, 1 surf rescue, 2 watercraft rescues, 2 natural gas leaks, 1 medevac, 1 sprinkler activation, 22 fire alarms, and 2 carbon monoxide alarms. So yeah, it's been a crazy summer.
Busy.
Very busy. I think everybody's saying the same thing across the board. Mrs. Goucher asked me to report on our progress with the county dispatch. The chief of police and I went down about 2 or 3 weeks ago and met with the county about the program of moving our police department to the county dispatch center. Met with Marty Palugi and his staff. It was a great meeting. We have made well, the county says they can get us in hopefully by October. Wow. With a drop dead date of December 31st. Chief Shutt and I have met with the radio people because one of the projects is moving to 700 megahertz radio system. So we met with them and we have a purchase orders in. I'm meeting with Tom on tomorrow to go over their radios. We will need to do a resolution, I'm told, for the probably September meeting.
Are we moving on our own, or is Avalon going as well?
Avalon is not going.
Avalon's
this
not
time.
going, okay.
So we'll need a resolution for that. One project we need to move right away is the BDA, which I sent the email out today, so I'm not sure if that needs a resolution or not, if we can get that through. It does need a resolution. All right. So that's what could hold us up. But if we can get that as quickly as possible, that would be great. But we are moving along. It all looks good.
Okay, interesting, good.
So
Any questions? The county dispatch is growing and growing.
Yeah.
Good. All right, thanks, Roger. We already did Sandy.
Chief?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
The monthly report for the police department, there were 174 motor vehicle stops and 15 adults were arrested. The usual update on personnel, excuse me. We have 1 full-time officer that's still away on military leave. He's been away for most of the month of August, and we expect him to return next week. Thankfully, we'll be swearing in our newest police officer tonight. Thank you, Mayor, Council, Mrs. Goucher, for continuing to replace these officers. It's truly appreciated. As the remaining days of summer wind down, much like the Beach Patrol, we will start to lose our Class 2 and Class 1 officers, slowly. Much like the Beach Patrol, we're asking them to hang on as long as they can, and there are several that they can't work their full shifts, but they'll return on the weekends to help out on the weekends. So that's helpful. We've opened our Class 2 and Class 1 hiring process for 2020 already, and we've received multiple applications already. So even though we're not done with 2019 summer, we're gearing up for 2020. That's pretty much it for personnel. We just want to touch on the rugby event. As you're all aware of, it's been canceled or postponed. I don't want to steal any of Jenny's thunder, but it was good and bad for us because it is such a large event. The planning that's been involved with that is something that I've never been involved with before. The multitude of agencies that are involved with it, the state police, prosecutor's office, Homeland Security, things of that nature. So for the past several months, we've been preparing our operational plan, which we were basically in the finishing touches of until yesterday. We're still going to continue on with it because my understanding is we will have that event eventually. So we're actually ahead of the game at this point now, which is good. So good and bad. We were all prepared, but we'll be even more prepared for next year if that's when the event occurs. So that's not the end of the world. Just to piggyback off of what Roger said with the county dispatch, we're laying all the groundwork with the radios and the CAD system. As I was talking to Mrs. Goucher this morning, it's a building block process. So we provided all of our CAD numbers, our call numbers, to the county so they can formulate some sort of contract. Once that gets going, or we get some direction with that, then we can really move forward with the CAD and the radio system. I can't thank Roger enough for all the help he's been with the radios. No one in our building is a radio person at all, and he's been a wealth of information. He's been fantastic. So like he said, we're meeting tomorrow to go over some finishing touches. And the BDA, what he's referring to is, again, I'm not a technical person, but it's a bidirectional amplifier. The signal strength in our old building and our current building is weak. So the bidirectional amplifier amplifies the signal where you can actually hear and transmit from within inside the building. That's really what that is. But it's a project. So that's what we'll be discussing tomorrow. That's pretty much all I have.
Are we going to have officers going into the full-time academy at the end of the month? And can we anticipate holding Class 2s over?
The officer being sworn in tonight will start next Tuesday.
Okay,
Academy. He will be there until January of 2020, and we're hoping to hold one Class 2 over to cover his spot.
okay,
I'll be submitting a requisition to Mr.
okay. So we can anticipate that coming forward. Okay,
Yes.
okay.
I think, I don't know whether this is the right place to bring it up, but in the public safety meetings and in the public works meetings, I keep hearing the same comments over and over and over again, how we can't retain people and we have a hard time hiring people. And that goes through public works, the lifeguards, fire department, EMS, police department. You all say the same thing, that it's becoming a real problem.
The hiring
And-
isn't really a
Well,
problem.
retaining,
but
in your case, retaining. But,
retaining, correct.
I don't know whether we should look at, I hate to say another committee, but, or maybe an existing committee, I think, needs to start to focus on some kind of a plan of how we can address these pay problems so that we can retain the people that he trains up. And, and we pay for that, right? The EMS people are getting paid like a pittance, I think it's $13.50 an hour, and Roger can't keep them. And it's, and Grant's had that problem all summer trying to fill his staff. That's why they're working so much overtime, because they can't get people or they don't stay. So, I mean, I think it's something that needs to be looked at hard going forward. And how are we going to, because it's only going to get worse. Every year it's going to get worse. I don't know what the answer is, but we ought to be looking at it.
Any suggestions, Jill, through A&F, through each particular department? What would you suggest?
Through the budget process, through A&F, but individually in public safety, we had talked about, not so much the full-time police officers. That's part of the negotiations, and we're actually starting that process. But for the Class 1 and 2s, look at those, the salaries for that, the salaries for the lifeguards. We will be addressing the lifeguards temporarily tonight on that. The same thing, the public works employees, their contract expires next year, so you need to start analyzing that now.
Do they have a high turnover of seasonal help?
They do. They had this year, started really last year, so this year and last year, they had a hard time getting them and then keeping them. Unfortunately, it's not a pleasant job.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So certainly, money would definitely draw people.
It sounds like it's a money question all the way around.
Yep,
Yeah.
money would draw
Yeah.
people.
So you
Ron-
have to, so you have to look at it borough-wide and then compare it to the county to see what you can, what you can draw, but then you also have to look at the overall bottom line, because you are faced with only being able to increase your operating budget by so much each year. So there's gonna be that happy
yeah,
balance
I mean,
in there.
that's the kind of look we have to take, right? Because
Yeah.
if we can't keep the beaches open
Yeah.
because of lack of lifeguards,
Can we ask each department head to have an analysis ready for us, what they're making in neighboring communities? And
Yeah, that's
like, if that
already-
can all
yeah,
be
that's
something
already
that
in
we'll
the-
be able to take a look at?
That's already in the works.
Okay, okay.
Roger had mentioned that, I should have done this before he left, but I didn't realize he was going to run out so fast, the possibility of like a public safety pay scale that would cover Sandy's men and women and police department and the fire all together, so we don't have these disparate, I don't know if that would help or work, or,
Well, you have to look at it to see, I mean, how to make it simple. You don't want to, you can't be paying apples and oranges, really simplistic, apples and oranges for the same salary when, you know, where is that risk factor? So you have to look at all of it. At the end of the day, we might be able to do that and come up with, on certain positions, obviously that. But there's going to be some positions that you are going to have to treat a little bit different, just because, number one, if they carry a gun versus don't carry a gun.
Right.
That type of thing, but,
And the other thing is, too, when you're looking at the police officers, the amount of training that goes into a Class 2 is, it's a lot, and that's a lot of money. So if you somehow take, instead of retraining, figure out a way where that financial incentive has people return.
correct.
Because a good majority of their time, especially the ones that don't go into winter academy, they're in the academy the entire time.
Yeah.
And they come out, they work 6 weeks, and they're gone.
right.
We have-
Train 8, work 6, and then gone.
We haven't had anyone return in a fair number of years.
To be able, that's just one particular department that's somehow providing an incentive for people to return once they're trained, would be,
Which only helps us in the future with budgeting. You know,
yeah,
If they return, we don't have to
Right.
expend so much in ammunition and so on and so forth.
yeah, the cost of the training is a lot.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we really are a training ground.
Yeah.
You know, they
Yeah.
come here for the summer, get that training, and then they get full-time jobs other places.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, but certainly, I mean, we definitely end up very slim at the end of the year. All the time, the end of the summer, we end up very slim. So through the budget process, you
Yeah, we
plan
will
on
be
addressing it?
yes, absolutely.
Okay. Anybody else?
I was going to say the police, the fire, the EMS, and the lifeguards all are in the life-saving business. And there should be a comparability of their incomes as we develop this plan. Because, not to diminish or demean Public Works, but there is a significant difference in the role that each one of those organizations plays that needs to be addressed from a financial standpoint.
Okay.
Just a thought. I've never looked at the pay scale of the police. I don't know what the steps are like. But would it be wise for us to keep step 1 at the low rate, and then after all of the training has been done, an incentive with the big jump there for them to stay at that point? Maybe it's already done like that.
Full-time officers, and we're starting negotiations, so I want to be careful what I say. But full-time officers, if you can get them to stay for 4 or 5 years, the majority of them will stay. So that is that crucial time period.
But how about the summer officers? Do they have an academy rate, and then they get out of the academy and they,
They have one flat rate.
Yeah, so they're paid whether they get trained.
so there already is an academy rate for full-time as well,
Which we.
and then you go up?
Historically, Stone Harbor's been ahead, Stone Harbor has been ahead of the curve in paying Class 2s. We've been around the county at the top, if not the top, for many years now. Now the other towns are starting to catch up.
Yeah, people are starting to
us.
catch up to us, so.
Oh, okay.
Right. And we get quality applicants, we really do.
You do.
And then, it sounds silly,
You know,
Obvious,
and that's it. We
but the
get
hiring
the
is-
quality, and they go.
hiring is everything.
People, yeah,
Yeah, the hiring process is everything, you're right.
Mhm.
people want our people.
Okay.
But we will look at all that through the whole process, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you, Chief.
OEM,
Take up too much of your time. County coordinator meeting is next week on Thursday. I'll be in attendance. Unfortunately, Roger won't be able to be there. He's taking his daughter back to school. So I'll report on that in September. I want to thank Public Works. We have the bollard bases have been replaced in the 9500 block of 3rd Avenue. So thank you, Grant, for the guys getting that done. So we should be ready going forward. And finally, you may have noticed this has actually been one of the quietest hurricane seasons in decades. I know. But the reason that I wanted to bring it up is because the predictions haven't changed downward. They've actually changed slightly upward, and we are expecting things to get pretty busy in the Atlantic Hurricane Basin. So I don't want folks to think, well, you know, we're out of the woods yet. We're actually getting ready to enter the peak time, which is September. So, but so far so good. Only had one named storm in the Atlantic, and it was a strange one that actually formed over land in our Southland. So that's really it. We're keeping an eye on things, but we are expecting national hurricane season's expecting things to heat up here in the next few weeks. So we will be keeping an eye on it. We'll be doing our normal thing through our social media and getting the word out to our residents when things get close. That's it.
Anything for JT? No? Thank you.
Thank you.
That finishes public safety, correct? Do you have anything?
Nope, that's it.
Anybody have anything else for public safety? Moving on to recreation and tourism.
Tina?
All right, well, we made it. The clinics are finished, the basketball leagues are finished. Bocce is still running right now. It's heating up. Tim was out with his family, so I was able to step in last week. He was not lying. They're very intense, but I'll tell you what,
There was quite the article in the Inquirer about it.
Yeah, no, they're on
Yeah.
their game. I don't think I would beat them. So that's still going on. All of our outside camps are finished, and all of the outside camps has expressed already interest to return next year, which is great. A lot of really positive feedback as far as we introduced the field hockey camp and the lacrosse camp, and so they're really excited to come back. They brought in really great numbers. Sandbar, boot camp, and yoga and surf are the 4 that are still running right now that'll run straight through Labor Day weekend. Pickleball is still steady. The numbers are still by the masses in the morning. It's not fading at all. Tennis has slowed down drastically. And we have one more Monday Family Fun Night left, and most of it we've booked already for next year, so the science tellers are coming back, and a lot of the kids really, really enjoyed it. A big thanks to Maggie Slavin she's kind of spearheaded that whole thing with the Monday Fun Night. She runs our Arts and Crafts League, our camps as well, so a lot of the kids know her, and it's really nice to see a familiar face. A lot of the kids actually just come to see her. So she's been great. Overall, the changing the Wednesday beach nights have went well. We're hoping to gain popularity over the years. A lot of really great positive feedback from having those beach volleyball courts. People have been loving that. And as of right now, which is why I'm wearing a hat because I was outside all day, we're preparing the fields and tennis for Wildwood Catholic because they use our facilities as a home facility in the fall. So we're just checking all the windscreens as far as with, the zip ties and everything, and make sure the surfaces are safe. The field, we have brand new soccer goals, so they're really excited for that. They've already started preseason. And then we're shifting gears to Halloween.
Wow.
Yeah, I got an email from Chuck over in Avalon, so we can collaborate and work on the Halloween events that the rec, they collaborate and do together. And that's it.
Now, along the same lines of the discussion that we were just having of personnel, how are you, since you end your programs when you do you not feel what the rest of the departments do staff-wise, or do you still, or where do you stand?
I'm pretty in a unique situation where I can hire the people that do the sports and the clinics. They end so early. They end, the second week in August, so it's just enough time where people can go back. And then I'm keeping that in mind. I mindfully hired the people that do office staff. They're more local.
Okay.
I know that, everyone knows Ashley Ryan. She's been here forever, so she's at Stockton. So she still maintains all of her office hours that she runs the tennis and pickleball building every morning. So I think it's just being cognizant before hiring them in that situation of how long they can actually stay for. And then they're just like the same situation, we have some coming down for the weekends that are still helping us out with 96th Street as far as offices, but I don't think it's, like, I can go down and man 96th Street office if need be. I don't think it's as,
So you don't feel that same kind of crunch that the
well, I
other
don't think it's as
public
crucial,
safety
too.
departments
I think
are?
that that's on the safety concern.
Okay.
Where 96th Street's more of a convenience.
Okay,
We have shuffleboard out there and somebody, you know, for tennis. So I've only had, again, there was only about, there's, I think, 3 call-outs the whole year of people that could miss their shift.
wow, that's impressive.
So, yeah, it's been really great.
Good.
That's it. Any questions?
Anything for Tina? Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Hey,
So-
Jenny.
So Tom gave you a little preview of, the postponement of the rugby event. I did email the committee and everyone yesterday. I just heard from David Newey from Super Sevens Rugby. The postponement has nothing to do with Stone Harbor or anybody on our staff. I was a little worried, maybe, somebody said something or something wasn't going right, but it has to do with logistical and operational problems they're having with the bleacher system, of all things. They had contracted with or negotiated and contracted with a company to build these bleachers for them, to bring them in. And I think he got a price of about like $45,000 for that. Unfortunately, all of a sudden, it is up to over $70,000. And he said it's just cost prohibitive. So
Okay.
he's looking for a different vendor, but it's not like something he can turn around in a week and a half, unfortunately. But he does, they're still committed to having an event here. I think it'll probably just be next year sometime,
Okay.
Unfortunately.
Okay.
Well, very
It is what it is.
Yeah, I'm just glad it's nothing, that had to do with me or or anything like that.
It's all your fault, Jenny.
Yeah. But I feel like it's difficult. But we're, at least at this point, we know a lot more about, what we have to do on our end of things as well. I think they were actually surprised in just like the size of the event, like how much additional security was needed, things like that. But that was fine with them. They were willing to do that. It's just this bleacher situation, and the fact that it's on a holiday weekend. They were having trouble getting the delivery when they wanted it, and then the removal. They would have had to been there till Tuesday, which I think we had said we were okay with, but he just said it was just getting really difficult all around. So
Okay.
unfortunately, they had to postpone that. I am going to meet with him sometime next week just to look at some future dates to see what might be available in the future. I have another event. I have a special event application. It's in circulation. It came in really late last week. The application actually came in yesterday. But there's a company out there. It's called, actually the company that's doing it is called Miles Partnership, but they do something called Brand USA, Ask a Local Tourism Videos. And they do international tourism videos. They've done a couple of, they sent me a couple links. I will make them available to everyone if you want to check out these links. They do tourism videos for small towns, different states around the country. They're really well done, and they do them from the perspective of a local or a local business owner. They're producing one that's going to feature Stone Harbor and the city of Cape May in one video. So the reason I'm bringing it up now is I just want to give you the specifics because the application is circulating. They want to do this September 6th and 7th. So in case someone has any questions, in the meantime, I can always get back to them and, find out if you guys have any questions. They're not really asking for any specifics, any services, excuse me. It's only a crew of 3 people. They'll be here either September 6th or 7th. They'll do one day in Cape May, one day in Stone Harbor. And they'll be filming, what they're interested is the beach, 95th Street, 96th Street, possibly down at the point, but only where they're allowed to be. The business district, that's definitely, just some iconic and unique businesses in town. They were really interested in our single-use plastic ban, so
Oh.
I think it's got a kind of an environmental angle
Yeah.
as well. So I don't know if anyone has any questions.
I looked
for
at
me.
some of their videos, and they're well done, very
Very well done.
professional outfit. The videos are very well done.
Yeah, so I'll make them available to everybody if you want to. There are just links to some YouTube videos.
Where do they promote these?
Pretty much online travel sites, so they're international. It's called Brand USA. It's to get people to visit the US. So it's pretty much online and travel sites.
So do they have a breakdown of what countries, what people?
I can see what kind of information I
Just
can from
curious,
them. Yeah, I'd be happy to. And I think that's
On their website, there's so many videos.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, they're done really well, I think. They are looking for somebody in Cape May County to be a host right now. So if you know anybody who's very enthusiastic and knows a lot about both towns, because they want one person to do the whole thing. You know, any business owner, they're happy to take suggestions.
Diane Whelan.
I was thinking Debbie Bass, personally.
Yeah.
Just because she's
Somebody
very
from,
upbeat.
right, that deals with both
Does
towns a lot.
know the county really well, but they have contacts in the area as well, so, but they're happy to interview, they'll want to interview the person.
So do they want you to get them some names that they will reach out to, or how do they do that part?
They are looking themselves already.
Okay.
They've got kind of the word out there with, I don't know who, she said they have, contacts in the area.
Okay,
But if we have somebody we want to recommend, they're happy to interview them as well. So you never know who you're
Okay.
gonna find. I mean, if you noticed, if you watched their videos, they had, some people were actual business owners.
yeah.
In town, some weren't. So, I don't know that you want to play favorites and choose a specific business owner over another.
Yeah, tough.
Well, that's a little tough call, so I kind of feel like maybe they should.
Maybe they'll
their
find
video,
somebody.
Let them find their own talent, I don't know.
Yeah,
Unless you really felt, like I said, unless you really felt strongly about someone. But if you have any questions, between now and the next meeting, because we would have to, like to get this, approved in the next council meeting, so I'm happy to reach out to them and get whatever answers you need.
okay.
But just like I said, so 3 people, they're not looking for parking, they're not looking for street closures, everything will be just done with the 3 of them.
Okay.
We have just winding down, with the summer, we have 2 more concerts. That includes tonight, so it's tonight and then next Tuesday. Tonight it's the local band, the Seabillies. Next week we have a kind of a little mini Woodstock event next week. And we have 2 more farmers markets, and that'll be it for those. Already getting phone calls for next year's craft show. So, starting to relook at the.
Did you get
layout
good
for that.
feedback from all the crafters?
I got, for the most part, yes. I had 1 or 2 that weren't, real happy with their, with what they did this year. But, kind of looking at, the things they were selling, I could see why. So, it's
the
a little
wrong
hard to
fault.
tell. I mean, we had a new vendor come in this year from North Carolina called Surfboard Tables.
So,
He could not even get the stuff off his truck fast enough onto the field.
yeah, that was like the item of the year.
He sold out of everything he had. Yeah, he's ready for next year.
I'm sure he is.
So, but I had quite a few had really good years, and they're all ready, looking for next year. So, I mean, I guess it's, sometimes you have to change a little with the times. Some people, I think, were selling some things that were, in my opinion, a little 2 years ago. So, new things come along, just like those tables were like the item of the summer.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
and then I'm going to be starting working on Thanksgiving weekend for the big, our big Christmas stuff.
Kim can do that.
She'll be my expert. So, if anyone has any.
Do you remember last year, Kim put it all together, and then it was canceled? And then she didn't get to say, ta-da, I did this, and have one under her belt. She never got to do it.
I think she's got it under her belt, though. If anyone has any questions for me, or?
What's with the memorial benches?
I don't know what that is.
I guess that's coming from Jill, the memorial bench
Yeah.
discussion.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay, anything else for Jenny?
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, the memorial benches, we've had a program since 2012 where people could purchase benches in certain locations. And we wanted to, number one, we started out wanting to update it because some sites are full, other sites had limited amounts. And the discussion with a few council people, there was a potential desire to no longer do the program. They felt that maybe we already have too many benches, so I wanted to bring it here to full council, see how everyone felt, whether you want to continue the program.
Does everybody know what the benches are that are being referred to, the bigger ones and locations?
Cement.
I think that, Jill, it started in the Public Works meeting, the last one that we had a few weeks ago, because I
Correct.
noticed in Grant's report from July that the men set 7 benches in July. And I just think we have enough of these benches in town. That's just my personal opinion. I don't know, because I don't know that we want to keep.
And basically, they order them once a year, so that's why we did see a large amount, but
And most of those that were set are down at the Point parking lot.
I was going to say, where are they all? They all went down there?
Well, Rocky's not here. How many of those?
Yeah, how
benches
about the marina there is?
To the Point?
Oh, Rocky?
How many of those 7 benches went to the Point?
We have 6 benches at the point, and then we have about 5 at the marina. We have 1 in front of the beach shack,
Mhm.
and we have about 10 to 13, I think, down at the promenade. So that's about what they are.
I'd like to just say that I think that if we did make a decision of some sort, that we would continue to finish the marina so that they're all the same, not adding any more than you expect there. The same thing with the promenade, finish the promenade with them. And where you go from there, that seems to be
yeah.
up for grabs. But I think we've started to, they're not all the marina does not have those. So that, if you finish that project and you finish the promenade, at least they're all consistently the same in those 2 locations. The other locations besides the point, I don't know where else they are.
Yeah, I'll go over them for you.
But
The,
it does, they are big and they are strong and they are endurable and they are,
The marina, it was determined that we could put 15 of those benches.
15 more or total 15?
Total,
Okay.
total of 15. So we're, lost what I wrote down.
So all those locations were set up by resolution, right? Is that how it all came to be?
Correct. So like I said, the marina was 15, the promenade, they felt that you could handle 18 there. 95th Street parking lot, they felt that you could handle 10 there.
Wow.
There's only one?
there's one on the corner of
There's only
96.
one,
Mhm.
95th
Where the
Street.
other 10 are going to go?
And then 123rd Street, an additional 4 could go there. So 123rd Street is pretty much done. The promenade, we have 3 on order, correct? 3 on order for, up at the promenade? Yes. So I think we're going to be pretty close on the promenade. So basically, the marina seems to be the one that's still open, and 95th Street is open. However, I think you want to revisit that once you're finished with the new lifeguard station and changing of the parking lot to really see
There you go.
Where there could
what
be.
you would really want to put there.
I
I
would,
agree with that.
I would suggest that we, do what's in the pipeline. If you have 3 in the pipeline now, and the others that are out there, just spread them out and stop. Because they're not, again, this is
Well, you're
my
not gonna-
personal opinion.
I wouldn't recommend moving them from the locations, because when the people applied for it, they were asked, and that's where they said they wanted them in that particular area. So I wouldn't say take something from 123rd Street and move it.
What's the rest of the provision? Like the 10, it wasn't like a 10-year provision? What's the provision on it if you buy one?
I believe it was 10 years, hold on.
10 years, then what happens?
I don't know. Yes, it was up to 10 years, and then they can file another application if they wanted a new bench or a new location.
Joe, how many
What happens
requests do you typically receive in a year?
What happens to
I'm
the-
sorry, what?
How many requests do you typically receive in a year?
Say maybe like 5 or 6? Roughly. Some years more.
3 and 7. 3 and 8, yeah.
So after 10 years, if somebody requests one, do you remove the one that's 10 years old and put the new request persons in? Is that what happens? He's shaking his head, yes. Okay. We don't just change the name on it or anything. We take that
No, we
entire
tell-
bench.
Oh, no.
We
you
tell-
can't.
What do we do with that?
We've told them that the lifespan expectancy of that particular bench is 10 years,
Oh, they'll live-
and they have the option to renew, purchase a new one, put it in that same location, or ask for another location.
I agree with Ray. I think at a minimum, at least for now, suspend the entire program except for that which is in the pipeline and reassess. I mean, we have plans for these places, the lifeguard station, we're looking at the marina as what are we gonna do with that down the road,
How do people find out about this? Do we promote it?
Maybe some just actually see them while they're visiting.
Right.
Read them in memory of
Yeah, while they're visiting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, it's,
I agree with you. I think we just
Yeah.
end it.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, that was kind of the recommendation out of Public Works, to kind of,
Is there a lot of maintenance on them? We're doing anything on them? No?
yeah. And there's less maintenance on this type versus the wooden slat one, let's put it that way.
I think when people are out and about here, they like to sit.
They're not. Have you sat on one?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I've sat on them, yeah, yeah. There's one 95th Street and the beach, the one. I've sat on the one several times. Just saying.
I just don't think.
Could we cut the number instead of
I don't
completely?
think they really go with the town. I don't
Yeah.
find them attractive at all. I think they kind of look more like they should be in a memorial park somewhere.
I think the look at the time was looking for low maintenance and durability.
They're like tombstones.
Because like the ones at the bird sanctuary that were all wood,
Yeah.
and the maintenance that was being required. So the look was find
Yeah.
something really durable that
Right,
can.
and it was something that someone had observed down in, I forget what town it was. Naples, Florida,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
I mean, I would definitely suggest at a minimum, re-looking at all the locations, reevaluating to see the numbers, whether you think it really makes sense to put anything more there. The idea of just kind of like putting it on hold, not accepting any more applications until you do that process, I think makes sense.
Yeah,
But the ones that we've already verbally committed to them, and they've either sent their money or the application in, let that one follow through. I think that's only fair.
We need a resolution to that effect.
or I guess just look, do we have to change the resolution? I do think too that people
do a
that are just so
motion to stay the
connected to here
program.
like it.
Just do
They
a
like to
motion to
buy
stay the
that
program.
for their loved
for right
one or
now.
for their family.
So Jill said we would just do a motion to suspend the program.
Until further notice.
Till further motion.
Except what's in the pipeline.
Correct.
Correct.
We can do that as a motion today, if that's the consensus.
Second.
I just have to remember. I'm writing it down. All right, moving on, we're done with recreation and tourism, I believe. Anything else? Natural resources.
Do you want to give a report for the rest of the
Let
summer?
Lenore do her report first.
You, or whichever one, eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
Yeah, I'll let Lenore do
Yep.
whatever update she has, then we can go into.
Good afternoon, everyone. Couple of quick updates. The Stone Harbor Point Stewards Program is ongoing. As of now, there were a total of 415 steward hours between, I guess, May 25th and July 26th, and they engaged 605 people in that timeframe. Just a kind of touch point on the incidents that are occurring in that timeframe. There were a total of 244 incidents. The bulk of them were low-flying aircraft, which is something that they've been asked to track for disturbance. Landing watercraft came in at 51. Swimming down there was 34 incidents. Entering the fenced area was 34 incidents as well. So those are kind of like the top four. A total of 57 of those incidents out of the 244 involved a disturbance to the birds that were there. And the most occurrence, the common thing was disturbing, was flushing the birds off nests. Overall, there's positive feedback about the steward program from residents and visitors. Beachgoers suggested adding more no landing signage at the southern point and signage in general down there. We know how we feel about signage and keeping signage down there, but that's some of the suggestions that were coming in to the stewards. There was negative feedback regarding landing and anchoring watercraft at the southern portion from returning boaters from 2018 who don't follow the new anchoring restrictions that were implemented in 2019, which is the 300-foot from high tide line. So some of those folks weren't pleased about that. And folks do seem to be interested in the nesting birds and the success down there, and they're also more involved in general protecting the birds from potential harm while enjoying the point. So they've seen an uptick in the general public engaging for stewardship activities down there. In regards to the bird sanctuary, the tours there have been ongoing and been doing very well. To date, there have been over 135 participants in the weekly tours at the sanctuary. The interns run those programs, so these are college students. They find them really interesting, and they have mentioned that this is kind of funny. Their folks are mentioning to them that they think there are fewer birds at the sanctuary because they've moved over to Avalon, and Avalon stole all our birds. So that's kind of the general consensus out there in the public. There have been several sightings of box turtles out there, and five-line skinks always seem to be interesting. There seems to be an uptick in skinks this year. The interns created a guidebook of common sightings of plants and animals in the sanctuary to help train next year's interns, and we'll work with them. Once we get a chance to review that guide, we'll see how appropriate that is to add that upload it onto the website. I think it's kind of neat that it comes from their eyes in terms of what they see and what people ask them about, so I think that's a good way to do that. There's ongoing eastern box turtle research happening in the sanctuary by Brian Williamson, who's a research scientist at the Wetlands Institute. Remarkable numbers of box turtles in the sanctuary, continues to surprise us. In 2019, he's captured 46 individuals. 19 are original captures still, so he gets recaptures as well. The other 27 were previously marked animals from other years in the study that he recaptures. There are 132 notched individuals in the sanctuary. Wow. There are 132 individuals that are distinctly different that he can recognize. He still is working to get a good estimate on the total number of box turtles that are in the sanctuary, and he expects to maybe be able to do that overall. He's still working on trying to understand the overall population health, whether it's declining or increasing, but it's pretty clear that the sanctuary is a very important habitat for box turtles on the island with that kind of a number. He's looking at questions about movements and connectivity of turtles between the sanctuary and the dunes and some other areas like that, and he needs to start doing work in those other areas to see if he's seeing marks and individuals from the sanctuary in those other places or what. So that's ongoing work. He has found juveniles and different age class turtles as well. Since turtles are such long-lived, it's hard. If you're only finding older adults, you don't really have a sense that the population is maintaining itself. That is not the case there because he's seeing those different age classes from hatchlings all the way up through juveniles to adults. So that's a really interesting study. All that is permitted and in partnership with the state wildlife officials. You need permits for the work he's doing, and he has them. Overall, other things, he's having a lot of interaction with Cope's gray tree frogs that are out there. Those are state endangered species. They're abundant in the sanctuary, in the freshwater side of the sanctuary. There's a lot of toads out there as well, and again, I'm talking about the five-line skinks are in high numbers. We haven't really been hearing those reported, so they're on the freshwater side as well, but the interns are seeing them on the other side. He also had a dead groundhog out there this year. Not that unusual that there was a dead groundhog, but it is unusual that there was a groundhog out there. He's not had a report of a groundhog. I don't know how. I got them in my yard all the time on the mainland, and they're not exactly nice because they're eating all my vegetables, but I don't know if anyone else has seen groundhogs in the sanctuary, but we have this year. We have implemented the Phragmites and Purple Loosestrife Control Project through the Natural Resources Committee. Scientists from Princeton Hydro made the first visit out to the sanctuary to begin site assessments for the development of the plan. So I met with them, just kind of went over maps with them. They went out and did their own walkthrough, and I'm waiting to get information back to the committee. So it's being run through the Bird Sanctuary Committee in terms of what the next steps are in communicating that with Jill and Public Works as we get there, and that would then come back here for next steps. But just kind of the beginning of that project has started. And then on another note, that brings me sadness, there has been some theft and vandalism at the sanctuary. We have had 2 signs stolen in recent days to weeks. There was a conservation area closure sign on Holly Path that was stolen, and sometime very recently, the Monarch Way Station sign that was at 3rd and 115th Street was forcibly removed and damaging the sign base. So we'll work with Public Works and Natural Resources to think about replacing those signs, maybe moving some signs over. Don't know what's going on there, and it looks like the second Monarch Way Station sign that was over by the meadow, looks to me like somebody was messing with that too. The edges are, it's a metal sign, the edges are kind of messed up a little bit, so I'm not really sure what's happening there. It's just kind of sad. So that's my report. I don't know if anyone has any questions.
Any questions?
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The request from Emily?
Okay, Fish and Wildlife, we received a request again this year, similar to last year, that not all the birds have hatched or fledged, and they are requesting that we extend the closure for vehicles on the beach. I believe last year we had extended it to October, or if the birds fledged sooner, we would open it. I do know Mother Nature helped that process with the flooding, so we were able to open it sooner than October 1st. So basically, they're asking the same thing this year, so we're bringing it forward for council's discussion to see whether you were so inclined to do so. The rest of the beach is not open for vehicles until October 1st.
And it says at least in the southern portion. What does that mean?
Well, they were looking,
That won't work.
they were originally throwing out the idea of doing a partial closure, but looking at the logistics of that, I think it would be too hard to manage with the tide coming in and out. Anything you place there is going to go, and then it also blocks the ability for, if there is some type of emergency, for police vehicles to get out there quickly. So I would say if you're so inclined to close it, you would do all of it.
I think that makes sense. I don't know who would be able to monitor that,
Yeah.
Depending on the tide.
So what are we doing, a motion at the regular meeting?
If you're so inclined, yes.
Is it already on there?
No.
And I would say at least if we went from, it's supposed to open on the 1st, if we went to about the 15th and then looked at, farther than that?
Well, I think the easiest, like I said, if you filed the same thing that you did last year, where
Okay.
you say October 1st or sooner if all the birds have
Okay.
flown away.
So it's going to be to restrict vehicle access at the point until,
October 1st or sooner if the birds have fledged.
or sooner if circumstances can warrant. We'll say that. Okay. bulkhead heights?
Mark can give a brief update. We talked about this in our flood mitigation meeting, the couple requests we had, and I believe we talked about it at council too. Requests we had for amending our ordinance to allow certain bulkheads, if it meets certain requirements, to only go to 6.2. And Mark can kind of give an update where he's at with that. It's still in the process.
Okay, so what I did was I put a packet together based on a specific instance that did come up, which is 8916 Sunset Drive, and we took some photos to give you some perspective, where you have the adjacent neighbor put in a new bulkhead at elevation 8. This picture number 2 shows that elevation 8 relative to their bulkhead, which is elevation 4.2. And then picture number 3 shows to their, what I would consider their right, which is the yacht club at elevation 6.4. So furthermore, we also looked at, I guess we were charged with looking at what we call the year 4 bulkheads, which is elevations 4.1 to 4.5. And then also took a look at how many bulkheads actually fall in that category based on the report that was, or the survey done by Stockton. So I'm trying to understand what the, I guess what the issue is when I looked at this, is I think really what it is a view issue. It's a, hey, I walk out of my backyard, I'm accustomed to sitting down on a patio chair, Adirondack chair, and being able to see the water, not a wall. That's the best way I can summarize it. So if that's the criteria, then I guess if you're looking to make an amendment based on a view corridor, it would probably have to be, the best way I could relate this would be the grade behind the bulkhead. If you're sitting in a chair like this and you were to measure your eye level, it's probably 3 feet from where my eye is to the ground. So do you say if your ground elevation is elevation 5 or lower, then you give that exemption if it's not reasonable to raise the grade? Still kind of wrestling with this, batting around to try to understand.
That has to be, yeah, we have to look at that a little more, because you've got properties that their ground level grade may be on the low side, but their houses have been raised, they're well up in the air. So they have options there if they want to fix that problem. Unlike a house that's down low to grade, where they can't really fill in their backyard because their house is only a couple of feet off ground level. See, it's not, so if we, I know that's what we talked about before the meeting started, but like if you look at the house, like Josie always points out, the house right next door, that's the same grade level as the house we're talking about. However, they put an 8-foot bulkhead in. So, I mean, if I were them, I'm going to ask that question, wait a minute, how come I did 8 feet and we're given a 6.2 or 6.4? You know, Mr. and Mrs. Grimes had said they would be agreeable to going to the yacht club bulkhead height, which is 6.4 feet, their neighbor. So you see what I mean? We can't, now the house next door is elevated. They can see over that bulkhead.
I think what Ray's trying to say is it might be, we might want to tailor it to finished first floor height versus the bulkhead height, because that way your measure is, who cares what your grade's at, it's where your finished first floor is. And if you want to keep that house that just so happens to be finished first floor almost at grade, which in some
That's
areas can
your
be
choice.
4 to 5 feet, then you got 3 feet above that, you sit in an Adirondack chair. In that instance, you're not seeing over it. So, I mean, you know,
Right.
the alternative would be, you know, these properties do have the availability to build a deck with stairs up to it out back. So there is some relief, but again, insofar as maybe their house is, you know, almost slab on grade, you're not gonna wanna put a deck in front of your windows if they were to come real low at the first floor. So if there's any relief, I would suspect it has to be tailored to finish first floor height. And
Yeah,
if there's
I would
new
agree.
construction taking place, that obviously that finished first floor height is gonna be elevation 11 plus 1 foot, you're at 12, so you're, in that instance, any new construction is gonna be well above the area where it even becomes a concern. So it's just these few houses that are old, acidic grade. The owner's fine with that. They probably own it, they don't even need to maintain flood insurance because it's probably flooded many times over the years, and if they own it outright, usually the bank's the only person requiring them to have flood insurance in place, so. I think-
And they still would be required to come to the 6.2.
Right.
Yes.
Yes, they
The old
couldn't,
standard.
right.
And I think also part and parcel of this is it needs to be constructed in such a way that that bulkhead can be lifted. We discussed previously the idea of driving the sheets further, driving extra long sheets so that that bulkhead can be actually just lifted if and when the time comes with a new whaler put on in place, because these bulkheads have a lifespan of 50 years now, and/or capped, structurally capped in a sufficient manner.
So, yeah, and it would be worded such that if you do come in and raise your house, then you raise your bulkhead at the same time.
Right.
So this is just a Band-Aid on this problem to help out these,
Few select.
however many there are, 12 or 15. It's not the 51 that you know.
So 51 is the number of people who, bulkhead is at that, but not the number of people whose house sit on grade.
Correct.
Correct, okay.
You know,
We said, we don't know how many of them there are.
it's,
Right, that would have to be part of his process
Right.
to analyze that.
Doesn't exceed 51.
Pardon me?
We know it does not exceed
Correct.
51.
Correct.
we have to, the thing is, if you can determine that, we're really good at tasking you, right? If you can get out and determine that, what that height is,
It's actually not
then,
that.
then when the people come to get their permits, they would, and they want to go 6'2", they've got to come with a survey that says, my floor elevation is such and such.
So when the 4.2 is given our blessing to go to 6.4, the house sells, it's torn down, do they have to go to 8 feet?
Yes.
Yes.
Or if they raise the
And
house.
the way the ordinance is written right now, if the bulkhead is actually capable of being capped, they can go to 6.2, the way it's presented, right? The way
4.5, if it can be capped, can go to 6.2. It's only if it's failing and so on and so forth, it would have to go to 8.
But we knew going in that, right, that those old bulkheads would not be.
Probably most of them can't
Just in
handle that.
case.
Right.
Yeah.
So we knew when we had all these flood mitigation meetings that we were going to run into these problems when we put this ordinance in effect. We're going to have to make adjustments here and there, and that's what we're looking at now.
Funny, I remember that different, that we were going to stick to it and stay on it so that everybody's bulkhead was close, so that your neighbor's isn't here and yours is here and the next one's down here, so.
Well, no, actually, what we said is we tiered it 2, 4, 6, 8, rather than doing everything in one fell swoop, because there were so many problems that we couldn't, there are issues that could not all be anticipated. So to bring it in, and we could handle them in the 2-year increments as you phased in the new heights, we could see what kind of unanticipated consequences were out there, as opposed to saying exactly how many there are, pushing, I don't know, 300 people, 400 properties, and then of the 400, 100 having issues, and how would we ever be able to handle all those issues at once? So they were phased in so we could
I know we did that.
find out the issues along the way.
You can't, we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that taking a 4.2 bulkhead to 6.2 is still 2 feet. It's still a huge improvement, and it's a big step in the right direction. So we're going forward, and we're putting better bulkheads up. And then the end goal of 2050, everybody's at 8 feet, that's still there. And 2050 will be there before you know it. So still, any new construction or improvements over 40%,
It's still mandated.
it's still mandated at 8 feet.
Should
So-
the option of going to 6.2 be offered to the other of the 51
No, because
properties?
most of them will take it.
I'm sorry?
Most of them would take it, and they don't need it. Like Mark said, if their houses are already up in the air at 10 feet or 9 feet, they can see over their bulkhead. It's not, then that's what we have to be careful so that we don't craft something that opens the door to everybody wanting, so that's why that measurement is critical, whatever that elevation is going to be.
But to your point, yes, we were setting criteria that says, so if you're one of those 51 properties, that's criteria number 1. Criteria number 2 would be what your first floor elevation was. So if you're in that, if you're in that category, but your first floor is 7 feet, that's different than, these folks whose first floor are like a foot.
I think it's logical.
So there's certain criteria as opposed to, just anybody in that category,
Right,
you get a waiver.
understood.
So is that where you were going when you say anybody within that 51 that meets this new criteria?
Yes.
I don't think.
Yeah, and
Frank,
that's the
we're-
plan.
I don't think we're talking about a lot of homes here.
No,
I
you're
think we're
talking about a
talking,
handful.
maybe we're talking 15, maybe at the outside 20, maybe, but I don't even think it's going to be that many.
Okay.
And a lot of them are up on the North Basin there.
Mark, have you ever heard this idea of putting a bulkhead in and then pulling it up higher? To make it higher after it's been put in?
No, I've heard you extending it, you can cap it.
But as far as putting it in and then pulling it up 2 feet? Have you ever done that? Okay.
No.
But we can find out about that. But at least we can make sure that in that ordinance that we amend, it says that the 6.2 bulkhead, or in Grimes' case, 6.4 that they go in with, has to be built in such a way that it's got the capability of being capped when that house is lifted or torn down, whichever comes first. Or 2050, if it happens to be 2050.
So question for everybody here, as we go through the mechanics of the criteria, once you establish that, if you establish it, what is gonna be your mechanism to allow that variance? Is that gonna be criteria that the borough engineer has to decide, or they're gonna have?
Is that who's deciding right now? Like, are these,
Well, no,
is
they're-
all these bulkhead permits coming to you now?
Yeah, but there's no deviations from the new ones.
Right, but they are coming to you, the permits are coming to you, and it would be the ones that fit this criteria. I would say they continue through the same office,
I mean, if, like I said,
being evaluated through the same office, which would be you.
Well, I think also, within a day or two's work, you could survey whatever properties we're talking about, if there's 51, and measure the height of the finished first floor roughly from the grade, and then all the grading information is online. You can pull that off for each property.
Oh, is it? Okay.
We do it all the time. You can
well,
see
that
where
would,
the grade is,
you-
and then you tailor it to that and say, hey, these are the only ones that are gonna be eligible. So when you have a list of that, when it comes across your desk.
and they would bring you the survey.
Right.
They gotta
Mark,
prove it
I was
to
going to say, would it make sense to require the property owner, if they're asking to fit into that exemption, to bring the survey
Well, yeah,
that
they-
demonstrates that
Shows
that's
their
correct?
finished floor,
There would
right.
have to be a criteria and a list of things to even be considered.
Right. So there would be the criteria, and then they would have to prove all of the criteria.
The onus is
Yes,
on them.
they would have to prove it all to
Yeah,
you.
They would have to provide the survey, because I
Mm-hmm.
you don't
Correct.
just want to go on their property
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
do survey work.
Yeah.
I mean, I think finished first floor height of elevation 5 puts you at a location where you have 3 feet of bulkhead above you if you're to walk out to a deck. And again, if a deck is an available option, the goal is to get everyone to 8 here. That was the whole intent and purpose of our ordinance in the beginning. So I think where you're able to alleviate the problem of your view with installation of a deck out back, I think we should encourage people, I don't think we should incentivize them to not go to 8 by allowing them to take advantage of this exemption.
So they got to have a pretty low
Right,
first
so
floor.
I would say the threshold is, if your finished first floor is below 5 feet, well, now you're talking about a real big wall out back. So if your finished first floor is in that,
Right, so that would mean that you would have a delta between
Right.
that number and where they're supposed to be. So let's say they have a finished first floor of 7.5, does that mean they're not eligible for the exemption?
I would say absolutely not
I would say not
eligible.
to.
I would say
Right.
probably down to 5, where you're 3 feet below. So you'll have a bit of a wall, but
So, right,
Yeah.
so that elevation 5 is established from that 3-foot eye level.
Right, from the 8-foot
Right.
that we want them to get to. That's my initial thinking. So if you have finished first floor at 4.5, 4.9, 3, whatever. There's very, very few areas that are, and if we make that threshold lower, the number of homes that will have this available to them is more limited.
It's going to go less, right, right. So can you look at that and give us the verbiage that we would be introducing as the ordinance change?
Yeah, and I still think we need to still deliberate.
Right, right, so once it's kind of written, then we can start to see and what we need to change and plug in and so on and so forth, but so we can have a framework and start plugging things in.
Right, because you would have like verbiage like below a certain elevation.
Yep.
Or not the ability to put a deck. This thing's kind of still,
Well, no, I wouldn't say that.
So is it the intent of the council that deviations are going to be handled by Mark? And is that something that should be addressed in the ordinance modification?
I would
Yeah.
think so,
Definitely.
right? Anybody see it any other way?
okay, so we'll put together some draft language, and then you guys can chew it up.
Okay. Anything else for natural resources? Okay, then we need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor? Opposed? We're adjourned. We'll take a couple minutes to stretch and then come